Okay, start recording. Actigal. Okay, we talked about some of the complications of the surgery. And number one is ulcers and gastritis. Another complication that Michelina talked about yesterday is low iron. And that happens in our female patients who are still having their menstrual cycle, so we need to slow that down and give some extra iron. One of the other complications that's moderately common in our patients is they can get gallstones. And if you get gallstones, then the gallstones can flare up, and you might require removal of your gallbladder or a cholecystectomy. Okay. Now, why do you get gallstones, and can we prevent them? Gallstones happen when the bile in the bile duct that connects the liver to the small intestine and the gallbladder fill with bile that forms into crystals. Now, I don't know if you guys still do this in school, but when I was in school, we did science experiments. You know, we would mix baking powder with vinegar, and you get, right? One of the science experiments we used to do is you'd heat up a glass of water and add sugar. And it was, you'd add sugar and add sugar and add sugar and put a string in it and let the water cool, and you'd see crystals form. Crystalline sugar would form around that and form little rocks or stones, rock candy. As the water cooled, the sugar came out of solution and formed crystals. Okay? The same kind of thing happens in your bile. The crystals of bile can form into stones, and those stones then can partially block the gallbladder and form a blockage that needs removal of the gallbladder. Okay. Now, some chemicals dissolve and some chemicals crystallize. The bile that you and I have changes as you go from being heavy to being thin. And it often crystallizes to form stones. Now, we know that losing weight changes your bile and can cause gallstones, and that can mean gallbladder surgery. But it turns out bears, when they hibernate in the woods every year, lose weight while they're hibernating. They burn fat while they're hibernating. And they, since they don't have access to gallbladder surgeons in the winter, have developed bile that doesn't tend to crystallize. So what we have found is a solution to help protect you from bile crystals and bile gallstones is we can feed you bile from a bear. And that's what they call ursodeoxycholic acid, which is a bile acid, and ursa is Ursa the bear. That's also called Actigal, or in Canada, I think it's got another name.
I'm not sure.
Okay. So we feed my patients bear bile post-op to avoid forming rock crystals of bile in their gallbladder. And what we found is we can decrease the need for gallbladder surgery by giving you bear bile. Now, if you don't have a gallbladder, your question was, should you still take bear bile? And the answer is, rarely gallstone crystals can form in the common bile duct even though there's no gallbladder. And if you get a stone in the common bile duct, it's 10 times more serious than a stone in the gallbladder itself. We have had several people develop gallstones in the common bile duct after the surgery, and it's led to diagnostic problems because the local doctors and specialists couldn't figure out what was going on, and led to surgery and a lot of medical tests and problems. So because of those patients, we now recommend that even if you don't have a gallbladder, for the first 6 months or so, you take the gallbladder bile from a bear.
Do you want me to hunt bears again?
Can you get me some?
Oh, yeah.
Now, we had one of our patients who was a very strong animal rights person. And when she found out that we were feeding her bile from a bear, she got very upset. And I said, well, yes, we go out and find hibernating bears and harvest them for their bile. And she was, what? Very angry. I said, no, I'm just kidding, because they found what the chemical is and they synthesize the chemical. We don't bother bears anymore. So she was okay with that. But for a while, she was pretty livid. She says, I want to know if I'm eating animal products.
We have enough bears in Canada. We can probably export them.
Send us a bear. We think it's easier to get your bear bile from the pharmacy rather than getting it directly from the bear.
But if he had to, he would do it for me.
Oh, well, that's nice. Bile, bears, and the MGB. Save. So did that answer that?